Hello, BookTube. I come to you in yet another bleak and barren Sunday when the publishing world turns its back on Steve. I asked my mail truck delivery guy, Tom from Tipperary, if maybe he could deliver books on Sunday, and he said, "Oh, I'll be needing a day off now, won't I?" He doesn't understand my pain. So I'm consoling myself in the way I always do with a book tag. This one is the Reader Problems tag. I think I saw it first on Katie Tastic's channel. Uh, and my spider sense tells me that it's another one of those tags that's probably not for me. But I'm so distraught, I'm going to do it anyway. Because what's the matter? What does it matter anymore? What does anything matter anymore if there are no books in the mail? What's the point? So, question number one. You have 20,000 books on your TBR. How do you decide what to read next? I think the question brings up an issue that has often tempted me to simply call for the abolishment of the idea of the TBR. If we're not drawing a useful distinction anymore between TBR and unread books in our library, then what's the point of having a TBR? Of course, you intend to read the unread books in your library. But the other part of the question is interesting. How do you decide what to read next? I usually vary it up by type of book, which I imagine most people do, right? I mean, if I read a serious work of English history, the next thing I read probably won't be a serious work of English history. It will probably be science fiction or, you know, an entertainment biography or something like that. The only impartial priority that happens in my reading queue is money. If someone's paying me to read a book, that takes priority. But that also doesn't take long. Let's see. Number two. You're halfway through a book and just not loving it. Do you quit or are you committed? I am committed. I don't quit on books. It just isn't justifiable when you read as fast as I do. I just go straight to the end. Number three. The end of the year is coming and you're still far away from your Goodreads reading challenge. Do you try to catch up? I had to actually go to Goodreads and see what a Goodreads reading challenge was. It looks like a lot of fun. I think it probably brings a lot of happiness to a lot of people. Unfortunately, it doesn't apply to me. As of this morning, in 2016, I have read 388 books. I intend, barring catastrophe, to do really good numbers by the end of the year, so I don't need a Goodreads reading challenge. I'm just fine on my own. Number four, the covers of a series you love do not match. How do you cope? I somehow manage. Number five, everyone and their mother loves a book you really don't like. Who do you bond with? Well, fortunately, I have a lot of reading friends, and a lot of them are critics. It's virtually guaranteed that if I hate a book, one of them will also hate it. The only exception to that rule that I have found so far is Karl Ove Knausgaard's My Struggle series, where they all love it. Every critic that I know loves it, even though it is obvious garbage. So there, I just cry into my wine all by myself. Let's see here. Number six, you're reading a book and you're about to start crying in public. How do you deal? It's never happened to me. Number seven, a sequel to a book you loved just came out, but you've forgotten a lot of the prior novel. Will you reread the book, skip the sequel, cry in frustration? Again with the crying. I know that BookTube largely panders to 13-year-old girls, but BookTube isn't actually composed largely of 13-year-old girls. You all hit the waterworks at the slightest inclination. But in answer to the question, I don't usually forget that much about the books I read. So a sequel is usually not a problem. I had a feeling this wouldn't be the right tag for me, but we'll push on through to the end. Number eight, you do not want anyone borrowing your books. How do you politely tell people no? It takes a couple of forms for me. I've mentioned on this channel before, I don't lend books. It's just a bad idea. It never turns out well. But I have a couple of strategies. If people are looking at my towering shelves of new books, forthcoming books, well, that's easy. if they want something, I can just say no. I might need it for a deadline, for an editor. It's work. That's a work shelf. If it's an older book on my shelf that they see, I have another out, which is the Brattle Bookshop here in Boston, which is a used bookstore that is extremely busy. It has an extremely high stock turnover. You will see new things there every day, lots of them. And so if somebody sees an old book on my shelf that they want, I can say, I might need it for research, but I can certainly find you a copy. And, you know, it's not just so much falderall. I actually do find copies of books for people all the time. I love doing it. I love sending things to people. Let's see here. Number 9, reading ADD. You've picked up and put down 5 books in the last month. How do you get over your reading slump? I don't have reading slumps, and they mystify me. When I see booktubers say, you know, I've been in such a reading slump. Oh, guys, I've only read 3 books this month. I want to take them aside and quietly but emphatically tell them, you do realize that you're going to be dead in about 15 minutes. And there's no afterlife. This is it. This is the only chance you will ever have to be you, to be alive, and to be reading. Reading slump? As to quote the immortal movie Moonstruck, snap out of it. Number 10. Oh, this isn't going well. We'll keep it up. We'll just go to the end. There's only 2 more questions. Number 10. There are so many new books coming out that you're dying to read. How many do you actually buy? Were I having my morning cup of wine, I would have spit taken it. I don't buy new books. That's vaguely obscene as an idea. I might buy a new mass market now and again, but the booktube videos I've seen of people coming back from Barnes & Noble with a stack of hardcovers, out of pocket, $150. I remember those days. They weren't pleasant at all. Walking into a bookstore and being surrounded by things you wanted and couldn't have. So, you know, we could maybe shift this to used books, but used books are so cheap that I tend not to leave anything I want behind. So I don't think this question applies to me. One of the people it doesn't apply to. And question number 11. After you've brought all those new books home that you can't wait to start, how long do they sit on their shelves before you read them? I think this is meant to be a sort of jab at impulse buying, and it's well taken. I don't tend to impulse buy. But the other part of the question is interesting. You know, how long does a book sit on the shelf before I read it? Usually not long. If I haven't got to something new in a month, then I have a hard, cold talk with myself about whether or not I want to get to it at all. I tend to make those decisions fairly quickly because the books just don't stop coming. Except on Sunday. They just don't stop coming. There are so many. And I want to keep at water level. I don't claim to be beating the system, but I want at the end of every year to say I read everything important in English. And that means no maundering. And that's it. That is the reader problems tag. Probably not from me, but on a Sunday you'll take what you can get. And I tag the following 3 people. I tag Adam from Mementomori. I originally thought his channel had a mopey hipster doom and gloom title, and then on a video of his he revealed that it's quoted from a Muriel Spark novel. Anybody who likes Muriel Spark in this day and age is okay in my book. And Justin from Feveredego, I want to hear his answers to these questions. And Rachel from Rae of Books. I don't understand why her channel doesn't have 15,000 subscribers. I'm sure that it will. So there you go. Consider yourself tagged, but all the rest of you too. These are probably better questions for most people on BookTube than they are for me. So I'm interested in the answers. And that'll have to do for today. I'm going to go back to staring out the window. Thank you, BookTube.